May the fourth be with you.
We're this close.
Hello, and welcome back to Gateway to Anime. How are we all? What's going on? Charlie, how are you?
I'm good, happy to be back. Happy to be back on film, learning how to edit. So that's pretty fun.
Yeah.
And it's a video. So hopefully we just get better and better and I don't have to edit around my awkward arms, which you will see from last week. I'm just going to fold them because Graham, we joked about Graham coming across the best because he's a non-trained actor and he did. He was just sitting there chill and now I'm just going to sit there like this and just pretend to be Graham.
I was just trying to fade into the background and let you two dance.
Yeah. Well, it worked.
Stillness is key on film. And Graham, how are you? Speaking of stillness.
Very well.
Good.
I'm going to be busting some arm moves today just to
throwing some elbows.
Bring some energy.
Nice.
Yeah, good, man. Good.
Excellent. Well, today we're doing something a little bit different and it's very exciting. So we have with us Tom from the podcast Pixels and Pints. Tom, how are you, mate?
Very well. Thank you for having me, guys.
That's a pleasure. Absolute pleasure. Yes, indeed. Indeed. Welcome aboard. So, first of all, let's ask a couple of questions before we jump into the meat and potatoes of this podcast. So, Tom, are you an anime fan?
I'm getting into it.
Okay.
I guess I've just had my little gateway, really.
Roll.
I've only just started really getting into it and starting new stuff. So with Castlevania on Netflix.
Nice.
And then obviously what we're going to be talking about later on, Star Wars Visions. And then I just started watching Cowboy Bebop last night.
Oh,
hey.
Right on.
In anticipation of the live action show. I was like, got to go back and watch the original.
Right on, man.
Yeah.
Okay, so you are getting into it. And what was the first anime you ever saw?
So the one I properly watched would have been the Castlevania on Netflix.
Right
Yeah,
on.
yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
so into it late.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah,
nice, man.
I'm
That's
sure
really
there was
cool.
some sporadic Dragon Ball
Yeah, a little
type
bit
stuff.
Yeah,
most
growing up a
people
little
do.
bit. I was never up early enough to watch it before school, so didn't have time.
Yeah. Oh, right on, man. Tell us a little bit about your podcast.
Yeah. So Pixels and Pints. So it started as a byproduct of a brewing company, which was started between a couple of mates, which was formerly Bounty Hunter Brewing. They're now called Mercenary Brewing Company. They've done like a kind of rebrand, all that kind of fun stuff. Our podcast actually originally started as Bounty Hunter Banter, as like a direct offshoot. And now we're Pixels and Pints. And I got brought into it as a guest host. Did a couple of live episodes from the bar that I work at.
Mm-hmm.
And then lucky enough, the boys were like, hey, we've got a spot for you as a permanent host. Would you love to come on it? And that was, 2 years ago, and I've been on it ever since. We focus on all pop culture, video games. So we've mainly focused on, we stick to Marvel and DC predominantly, and a lot of Star Wars. And then we're all PlayStation gamers. Predominantly. So two of us have PS5s, one has a PS4, and we're talking about games we're playing, or occasionally do a bit of music, bit of other stuff, bit of comics, bit of books. But yeah.
What are you currently playing?
I'm about 60% of the way through the new Guardians of the Galaxy game.
Any good?
Yes. If anyone ever played the Avengers PS4 game and was horribly burnt out by it, be thankful this is a million times better.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good to know.
It's got an actual story.
Okay.
Free consumer advice. Love it.
Little narrative. Nice.
Yeah.
Very cool. Very cool. So anime is branching out a fair bit. And this was a really interesting project when I first heard about it. But this is, as you mentioned before, Star Wars Visions, which was commissioned for Disney Plus, where it is exclusively. I'm not going to talk too much about Star Wars. We're going to get you two, Graham and Tom, to talk about that because I don't know very much about Star Wars. If I'm being real, the Devonports over here, not big Star Wars folk.
It's a great shame that it was a black mark against our name of nerddom. And we have to wear it. So I don't know why we volunteered to this episode because I'm going to reveal just how bad I am at Star Wars, even though I've seen all the films, but I'd say I'm the epitome of a casual watcher.
Well,
just a casual thing with Star Wars.
Casual, like me too.
Yeah.
So there was no Star Wars when you guys were growing up?
No. I've seen all the originals. And then when I was in high school, I obviously saw the terrible, prequels, of course.
Not terrible, but
Pretty terrible. Yoda was flipping for some reason. That was the whole thing. And I was like, at 14, I was like, this is sick. And then I rewatched it like 10 years ago. I was like, what the fuck is this? Anyway, I haven't seen any of the new ones.
Oh.
Not one
all right.
at all. So there, I'm out of myself there. Great. So Star Wars Visions is an anime anthology series created specifically for Disney Plus, as I said. Now, it's produced by Lucasfilms Animation, and the series consists of 9 short films produced by 7 Japanese animation studios, each telling their own stories based on and set within the Star Wars universe. The creators at each studio were given free rein to re-envision the idea of Star Wars as they saw fit, while receiving guidance from Lucasfilm's executive team. So it's kind of interesting here, and the development began when James Waugh, who's a VP of franchise content at Lucasfilms, pitched the idea to Kathleen Kennedy in early 2020. So to facilitate difficulties of international production, Lucasfilms collaborated with an independent producer named Justin Leach and his company Cubic Pictures, which helped facilitate the discussions between the US-based execs and the Japanese studios. And this was particularly imperative because it was obviously during the pandemic. I mean, I'm sure you guys all have a lot of opinions about Disney's acquisition of the Star Wars franchise. And obviously I do too. I mean, I don't know enough to really have an opinion, but like, obviously I'm going to give one.
Mate,
I'm a white male. And
I'm just waiting.
So I'm just going to give an opinion. I mean, I don't really know. Obviously a lot of people are up in arms, but like this project, before we get right into it, I thought was pretty cool as an idea, you know, like very different and giving animation studios kind of a free hit at a universe, which obviously, you know, Lucas was inspired by Kurosawa in the early days. But I just want to quote here from James Waugh, whose idea this was. We really wanted to give these creators a wide creative berth to explore all the imaginative potential of the Star Wars galaxy through the unique lens of anime. We realized we wanted these to be as authentic as possible to the studios and creators who are making them, made through their unique process in a medium they're such experts at. So the idea was, this is their vision, ripping off all the elements of the Star Wars galaxy that inspired them, hopefully to make a really incredible anthology series unlike anything we've ever seen before in the Star Wars galaxy. And that's James Waugh. And I thought that's pretty cool. That's a cool mission statement, right?
Yeah.
So Star Wars Visions. Tom, why don't you talk us through a little bit?
Sure. I think the best thing, just want to start off with, you've already mentioned it, the influence that Lucas had from the Kurosawa films.
Yes.
This is like a kind of cool full circle. It's coming back to like Japanese culture where a lot of these initial elements came from in the universe. I like the fact that they didn't try and pin in the studios into fitting their vision. Yes. They let them have their vision. And like, I guess that goes with the name. There were some of the episodes where, especially being such a casual anime watcher or new to it, I probably didn't appreciate it as much as someone else. But the fact that every episode had its own feeling, there was other ones that I guess I appreciated more than others because of what I like seeing in my animation I like watching. But yeah, that coming full circle really hit me.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. What did you think about it, Graham? Because you're also a big Star Wars guy.
Yeah, look, I always think that if you can put a fresh look at something, especially for a franchise that's been around since 1977, it has stagnated over the last few years. I think things like The Mandalorian sort of helped sort of reinvigorate the universe. And then this again, just giving different cultures a crack at something that's been around for a while. It's a good thing. And I thoroughly enjoyed most of episode 2 was a bit ropey.
Actually, we need to talk about that later.
All right, well,
let's dedicate the whole second half of the episode to the second episode of Visions.
We will talk about the second episode because, you know, obviously I'm not a big Star Wars nerd, so I don't know much about that universe necessarily.
Don't call us nerds.
I know now.
Right here.
I'm a nerd too.
I'm an anime podcast.
I'm an anime nerd. I'm not a Star Wars nerd. We're different, but we're the same. You know?
Anime nerds is so much worse. I'm so sorry.
God,
sorry, everyone watching this podcast. Sorry, entire demographic.
No, but I mean, so I guess for me, I was coming at it as an anime fan. So watching a music episode, which was the second episode, I get it. I've seen Keon. I've seen, I've read Beck. I've seen these things before, but to see it I didn't need it in a Star Wars universe.
No one
you know what I mean? Like, the first episode, The Duel, which was basically just a Kurosawa nod, big nod. I was like, cool. This is cool. There's some clanky CG animation perhaps, but like otherwise I forgave it.
Just a good way to open as well, because it was, again, throwing back to inspiration that Lucas had, and it was just kind of this beautiful samurai-esque take on Star Wars. And I thoroughly enjoyed it. And then to have the second episode be something I kind of appreciate it from an anime perspective. You're kind of like, oh, yep, because anime. Like always like the weird, like it's kind of taking that outlandish sort of thing. But basically I think we should probably describe to people that there are 9 episodes in Visions.
So there were 7 studios with 9 episodes. So 2 studios doubled up. So the first one was Kamikaze Douga, who are actually kind of unknown. They've done a little bit of work on JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. I think they did a couple of openings. They also did a thing called Pop Team Epic and Batman Ninja,
Yeah.
which sounds pretty cool.
Oh, I've seen Batman Ninja.
Oh, you've seen Batman Ninja.
Yeah.
Is it cool or is it shit?
It was interesting.
Batman,
people.
Sold.
Ninja Samurai.
Yeah, I mean, it's got all the elements. But
It's got the elements. I'm interested in them.
Okay. The episode we're talking about called Tatooine Rhapsody, where Jabba the Hutt's brother,
Is that what it was called?
Yeah.
gets embroiled in some kind of issue with Jabba, and he's in a band, and then they got to like play for his freedom. It was fucking dumb.
And then they're going to get executed, but they rock so hard
They rock
that they
so
didn't
hard.
get killed.
On the pod racing circuit as
Yeah.
well?
Yeah.
There was a lot of things thrown
There
in.
was so much.
That's a big space to fill as well
Yeah.
for music. Like,
It was very
It's
strange.
It's not the best acoustics
no.
at all.
That would have killed them.
Off with their heads.
I don't know about you guys, but I had to watch it due to my Apple TV. I had to actually watch the whole thing dubbed,
Oh.
which isn't necessarily a bad thing for this particular adaptation because they went for very high talent for their English dub actors. They've got Lucy Liu in one. They've got so many, like Neil
David
Patrick
Harbour.
Harris is in one.
Harbour, okay.
In that one in particular, that lead singer of the indie band was Joseph Gordon-Levitt.
Oh, really?
Was it?
Yeah.
That's
And
outrageous.
honestly, I'm here for a stupid story. You know me. Last week I talked about the Vampire Eurovision
Virtual Prison, yes.
Prison that I said it was my favorite show of the season. This could have been my favorite episode of Visions if done correctly. But
Yes.
man, it was something else.
It just wasn't well done.
and the music was terrible
The
too.
music was bad.
Yeah.
Clunky. The whole thing was clunky. Look, again, take a swing. Swing for the fences, but sometimes you want to strike out.
But
And,
why put it second?
But if
The second was a weird choice for me.
Yeah. Well,
Why
I
second?
guess the first episode is violence, death,
Yes.
massacring a town.
Yes.
Then the second episode, you pump the brakes.
I suppose.
Like the third one is the Trigger Studios.
Studio Trigger, yes.
Yeah, so that's also over the top. So I think it's just controlling.
I think I
Like-
forget that anything on Disney Plus and Star Wars still has to be somewhat family friendly. So you have to have
Yeah.
kind of an element of, and I mean, anime anime is not always family friendly. That is
no.
that's not the right thing to say. But in this situation, I think that they kind of aim to be you kind of have to be controlled by the Disney Plus.
Yeah, look,
blah,
it
blah.
was the family episode, I guess.
But you're also got to look at it in the binge watching culture. Like you can't be up at 11 all the time for 9 episodes.
Yeah, and there
Sometimes
were
you got to come down and rock out.
and a lot of it.
Even though you're supposed to go up when you rock out.
I would have ended
down.
with that.
Well, I guess as well. I mean, you can watch it in any order you want. There is no. I mean, they just put it in a relatively arbitrary order, I think. But you could watch it in any order you want.
Yeah, there was
right?
no
There's no
sequentialism or anything.
exactly. Yeah. So I suppose I'd say if you're going to watch it, those of you who haven't seen the show, well, maybe don't watch the second one, or do
Just
if
watch
you
it.
want
I
to
know,
have a
just
laugh.
watch
No, I
it.
watched them all.
It's like
Just watch
it's
it,
like
yeah.
11 minutes, and also there's probably someone likes it.
I'm sure someone
there will
does.
be.
But just want to talk about that studio. I'd never heard of them, but they're called Studio Colorido, and they did Burn the Witch, which is Tai Kubo's little extra bit he's done recently, which is the creator of Bleach, for anyone who doesn't know. Something called Typhoon Neruda. No idea. But they're a subsidiary of Twin Engine, which are quite a big production studio. So, yeah, I found that kind of interesting. And then, of course, Studio Trigger, who did Kill la Kill. And for those of you who are playing along at home and listen to every episode of this podcast, that is, of course, the group who did Gurren Lagann, then were inspired as such to go and create the studio which did Kill la Kill, which did Little Witch Academia, Darling in the Franxx. They're the mech people. And this was their episode. That was Twins.
That was,
And I thought that was pretty fucking cool.
that was balls to the wall. That was
I
a good
think
one.
as an anime viewer, I loved that episode.
Yes.
I'm sure I feel like in terms of like Star Wars, any kind of like lore that's meant to go there, they threw out the window because it was a Trigger production. Like there was
was
one point where
madness.
he was like not wearing a mask, going on like through space, like still surviving, like insane stuff going on. There's a lot of lightning coming out of hands.
Classic Studio Trigger.
That's the dark side of the force.
All right.
Don't at me or
Alright.
do.
Well, no, not necessarily. But yeah, we can get into force powers later.
Oh,
Yes.
please.
Yes.
I need to be
Educate us.
educated.
That starts getting into the Jedi Knight games, really.
Oh.
I enjoyed that one probably the most because it was so ridiculous. It was like everything I love about Studio Trigger, bright colors.
Yes.
They couldn't do the fan service because they're on Disney Plus.
Yes,
They got very
so we-
close at one point, and I went,
Yes.
there's a bit where there's armor that gets ripped off the female protagonist of that,
was
or
getting close
antagonist.
there.
And if it was an actual Studio Trigger production in their own right, they would have been naked. Like
Oh, yeah.
110%.
Oh, yeah.
And they would have been like,
They had
this
free reign.
production company are like hectic. Like Kill la Kill's about school uniforms that are personified that go on to, like, and they become in mecha armor. And
Right.
it's like quite uncomfortable to watch.
Yeah.
But
It is, yes.
they're
Armor is a
amazing
very
at
loose term as well.
yeah, it's like it's truly ridiculous and kind of uncomfortable. But in terms of like, I reckon they have probably the most impressive animation Of all
They're
of
up
them.
there. They're up there. I mean,
So-
Gurren Lagann looked
All of the Visions.
Visions, no, of all of the world. No, Visions, yeah.
in all the world.
In the whole world.
It did look good. I mean, I also enjoyed The Ninth Jedi, the production IG did.
Mhm.
That was a really cool episode. As far as I'm concerned, that was the most like pilot-y one. I was like, oh, this is the pilot of a series, you know? Like a lot of them were very vignette-y and just like standalone, which is cool. But that one I was like, oh, okay, you could explore this into an actual show.
That was fantastic. I
Yeah.
think that was my favorite.
Yeah,
I
production
thought
IG.
Yeah.
I don't, and I could be literally talking smack because I don't know about Star Wars. That felt to me like that could have belonged in the Star Wars verse quite easily.
Yeah, I think
Is
that-
that
Mm.
Probably
fair?
slipped in the canon a lot easier than
Yeah.
the rest. Studio
Yeah.
Trigger one now.
I was like,
60-foot lightsabers. We're like,
The thing I really loved about that episode was some of the design elements. So if you looked at the twins when they were in armor, it was Vader split in two. It was Vader's armor kind of like
Yes.
separated across the two. And so they both had elements, but it was never complete. But you know, if you saw them together, it would have been like,
this is Vader.
that's Vader's armor.
There he
Yeah,
is.
which I really liked.
I
Why
would
we
have
get
got
the
that.
experts on.
went over my head.
Production IG, of course, Ghost in the Shell, Haikyuu, one of the best shows ever made, Kuroko no Basket, Psycho Pass, the remake of Legend of the Galactic Heroes.
Sad we can't.
I was getting this in. You think I'm not getting it into every podcast,
But you haven't watched the remake.
but I will.
I heard the remake's bad. So
I haven't
why
watched
are
the
you
remake, but they did it.
Ah.
So just
Poor
so
Tom
you
is
all
so
know.
confused right now. He doesn't know. He doesn't know what Legend of the Galactic Hero is. He doesn't need to know.
I'm just
Okay,
sitting
he's just
here.
living his
If you're a
life.
sci-fi fan, you're getting into anime, you should watch Legend of the Galactic Heroes. It's my mission to get people
I
to
will
watch
put it
it.
on the list.
Yeah,
Yes.
probably, yeah.
You got
It's a classic,
112
yeah.
episodes in you because that's how long
It
that
is
series
110 episodes, yes, but let me tell you, worth every minute of it. But anyway, watch
Sold.
Legend of the
This
Galactic
is actually why we get guests on.
Is that the reason I'm getting people on?
Yeah,
It's just me
just-
to yell at them to watch Legend of the
I better
Galactic
watch
Heroes.
Okay, I'll do it.
Brothers.
Yeah, but Tom, what was your favorite of the 9?
Especially as someone who's just going to get into anime. The first one drew you in.
It did.
It drew you in from the start. And I don't know if you guys have played Ghost of Tsushima.
Oh, yeah. Such a good game.
Did you play it on Kurosawa mode at all?
I did.
That's what I wanted from Kurosawa mode. Just those little bits of color. Because I found it
Yeah.
was too washed out, like black and white.
True.
There were times where you were trying to find an enemy and they were like hidden in bunches of flowers and you just could not see them because it was too white. We all agreed on Pixels and Pints that's what we wanted. Like if we had just a few more little bits of color popping out, those reds, those blues,
That was
greens. Yeah, that was fantastic. I actually really enjoyed the, I don't think you got to it yet, but the Astro Boy kind of inspired
Yeah,
episode.
that was so good.
I thought that was really cool.
Very
What
cool.
was the other one? The Elder. That
Yes. Also Studio Trigger. Same ones who did.
Oh, right.
That was their second episode. The same.
and that's what I really loved because I looked up when we cover them as well, and obviously having no idea who these studios were, and it was just kind of like looking at the animation styles, how different they were, even the
Yes.
ones from the same studio,
Absolutely.
which I thought was a really cool way to do it. Yeah.
Totally. Yeah, it's
Yeah, because one was classic Trigger and the other one was very much kind of like a subdued
Yeah,
style
totally.
of animation.
Yeah,
Like
it was-
classic anime.
and Kinema Citrus did the 4th episode, which was The Village Bride. And
I love that episode.
That
I
was a
loved it
great
too.
episode.
It felt like a Studio Ghibli style or something
Yes.
like that.
Yeah.
Like, and that to me felt like the most, in terms of just like a vignette, it felt like a complete story to me. Like I went, oh yeah, I really knew what happened, and I kind of I thought it was beautiful.
And that studio, of course, Made in Abyss, Rise of the
Made in
Shield Hero.
Abyss.
And in fact, a guest of this very podcast did the music
Oh, yeah.
for that episode.
Kevin Penkin.
Shout out Kevin Penkin.
Mr. Penkin.
Did
Wow.
the music for episode
Yeah.
4.
Yeah, you're not the
Fucking
first
great.
guest.
Yeah, sorry.
Sorry.
I heard it was season 4, episode 30 something. Not surprised.
We finally convinced someone to come on. Like it took that long. We're like, suck it in.
But yeah, that was a really, really cool episode. So as a Star Wars fan,
Yes.
obviously you guys have strong opinions on things. Of course, we mentioned it before, but Disney's acquisition. Let's just jump into that before I get any further. What were your thoughts either at the time and now? Because this is the big deal, right?
Biggest thing for me was the loss of LucasArts Games. So when they took over that, they disbanded that. So for those who aren't that familiar about the Star Wars universe, so you had the original 3 movies that came out, late 70s, early 80s. And then it was a literal void. There was a couple things kind of drip fed here and there.
Christmas specials.
Yeah, but there was no
Watch
movies.
the
There was
Christmas specials.
rarely you got any sort of TV show. Only in the mid to late 90s did we start really getting any games around it.
Right.
Yeah.
But we had the books. We had the
Yeah.
books. There were so many books. There
There's some
was
really
so
good
many
books.
series of novels that were written. And when Disney took over, they just went, nah, that's
Yeah.
not canon.
Right.
And that pissed a lot of
Like
people
a
Oh,
lot.
wow. The whole.
Yeah, so you're
That's
talking
crazy.
like 30 years of
Yeah.
like, and the books were canon. Everyone was canon.
Yeah.
And they just
Until Disney came along and they basically just cut that off and said, no,
That's-
that's all the, what do they call it? The legends?
Legacy.
Legacy, yeah. And so, but there was some of this, but they've gone back now and they're starting to pick things out of that
Yeah.
that they're using.
Interesting.
So
Yeah,
it's like, but yeah, but for people who, you know, were really invested in that universe, that's what we had to get us through until we, you know, getting to modern day where it's everywhere. You can't turn without seeing some Star Wars, but yeah.
There was this game that I used to play in the computer lab in the 90s at Subiaco Primary
Yeah,
that was like R2D. I don't remember, you just like, it was just a robot one.
I did
And I hope that's still canon, but it probably isn't. And I can't remember what it was.
Oh, no.
But it really meant a lot to me as a child. So
There you go.
if that's not canon, I'm fucking strike
Boycotting.
here.
Yeah.
Boycotting.
Fuck you,
I feel
Disney.
personally attacked. Anyway, I'll try to
That's
remember the name
interesting.
of that game.
That's really interesting. And the game, because Knights of the Republic is the famous game, right? Well, there's lots of them, but that was the big one.
Battlefront as well.
Battlefront, yes. So yes.
Rogue Squadron.
Rogue Squadron.
Yeah, okay, there's been a lot.
So good.
Been a lot.
there's-
And
Yeah, deep.
yeah,
Deep.
the games of, especially in more, well.
And they didn't just stick to the movies as well. They went past.
Right.
One of the first Star Wars games I ever actually probably played and completed was back on the 64, Shadows of the Empire.
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
And that was kind of
shit.
set in and between and around the other movies. And like you had the other characters kind of pop in, but they weren't really part of it. You played as a separate character, but that was a whole new story. But that's all been
My favorite
thrown
was
out.
Jedi Academy.
Yeah.
Jedi Academy.
Yeah.
Now that sounds like
That sounds like an
something-
anime.
That does, and I'm here for it.
A school based in the Jedi.
It was-
Yeah,
that
but you're
was-
talking, it was years ago.
That was the third in the trilogy as well.
pretty
Oh,
much,
really?
Yeah.
So there was Jedi Outcasts was
Yeah.
number 2, and then Dark Forces
Dark
was the
Forces,
first one.
yeah.
Yeah,
Okay, on what console?
I had it on PC originally.
On PC. Okay.
Yeah.
So all of those games that we just talked about, every single one were LucasArts games,
Yes,
and that is now gone.
they disbanded the studio. Yeah,
Okay, so that does seem like if I was a member of this fandom, that would have pissed me off too.
Yeah, because
That does sound kind of. I'm outraged, in fact.
you invest so
I
much
can't
time,
believe it.
man. Like,
That's a whole thing.
and it's all considered canon. So you read like the Thrawn trilogy, you read like all the comics from Dark Horse and stuff, and it's all considered canon.
yeah.
And then Disney comes around and goes, "No, that's all bullshit, man. You wasted your life.
You
Like,
wasted your life.
Yeah.
Anything.
Shit.
you gotta get a job." Like,
But even then, you see, getting all choked up. You see,
It's okay. It's
it's an emotional episode, guys.
Motion time.
Thought we were just gonna come and talk about the Force.
no, but you see like elements in. Well, you haven't seen the most recent films.
No.
There are elements from the Thrawn series and the Dark Forces.
Yeah, the ships,
Yeah, but it's all
random
there
ship
in
armada and stuff like that.
yeah, but and cloning Palpatine and all this stuff. This was all written back in like the mid 80s.
Right.
And now they're using it in like early 90s and they're using it now in the films. But like for all the people who read those books, they're like, I've read that scene
Yeah.
before.
Yeah, I know that.
Yeah, which was hilarious
Right.
when The Last Jedi came out and someone, after the whole controversy and people were outraged about it, and there was an interview with Kathleen Kennedy where she was saying they were comparing the two franchises, Marvel and Star Wars, and Kathleen Kennedy was just pretty much like, well, Marvel's got all these books and games and history to draw upon, and we've got nothing. And you could just hear everyone in the world just going, "What the fuck are you talking about?"
Oh, that's
Well, we did.
Yeah. You got rid of it.
You burnt
Yeah.
them.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, that's that would have been the message board would have just lit up that night.
Reddit was. Reddit was.
Reddit would have
A
crashed.
fire.
Oh,
Yeah.
As a Star Wars fan and now a burgeoning anime fan.
exciting. Watching Cowboy Bebop. That's
Yes.
a sick one.
Very good call.
Yeah, it was-
Great gateway anime. As
It
we-
is,
there you
funnily enough.
Take a sip from my
go. Great way to start.
It's a very Wade's World moment there.
I'll bow to no sponsor.
Yeah, so what did you I mean, you've sort of already indicated that you enjoyed it, but you had a good time watching this show, anthology series, and it didn't piss you off as a fan? Like, what the fuck is this?
Loved it.
Right.
I was as well as you were saying, I was excited when I first heard about it. I thought that was a really cool idea.
Totally.
Yeah.
So this is Disney doing something right.
Oh, they do a lot of things right.
Yeah, I think that.
But then you just have to realize that they're an amorphous blob of a corporation that swallows everything.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like, it's just
Are they doing Marvel well, you think?
Yes.
up to
Yeah,
this point.
I think so. Yeah.
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 But every movie that comes out, you're like, There's not a white man called Chris in the lead. Oh shit! This might be the one.
I've heard a few people have been whispers of the new one coming out being shit.
Eternals.
Well, this has been shit. The thing is that, again, like I just said, they've had 10 years of white men running into buildings saving people. This one isn't that.
Right.
This is like an effort to diverse group of people that aren't white males that are coming to save the day.
The problem with the fan base.
Yeah, it's the same thing
100%.
that happened with Captain Marvel when Brie Larson came out and said some things about this is not about a white male saving the day. This is about like a strong, independent female. And it just got tanked.
Right.
Like that Rotten Tomatoes score went
Yeah.
Really?
because white males.
Yeah. Interesting.
We ruin everything.
Seriously.
We do.
Yeah, that's true. What is the next news for Star Wars for layman's like myself? Like, what is coming up? Do you guys know what's next?
Book of Boba Fett.
Boba Fett, yeah.
Okay,
December
Boba Fett.
28th.
Disney Plus show.
All right. Okay. Is it Favreau?
It's spawned out of the Mandalorian. Yeah,
Mandalorian.
so the last kind of little teaser scene at the end of the Mandalorian, Boba takes over. Well, spoilers for anyone who hasn't watched it yet, but it's been out for quite a while.
You should watch The Mandalorian, guys.
I've heard-
if you're
I've seen
layman,
season one.
You should, but watch it. It's great.
I will. I
Jump into season 2. It's
I
a good
gotta
time.
do it. I promise.
Yeah.
do it.
It's Dave Filoni. Book of Boba Fett.
Dave Filoni's kind of become the Kevin Feige of the Star Wars universe,
Okay.
which is a fantastic thing. Because I don't know if you guys did you watch Clone Wars at all?
No,
I was
but
about to
Brett,
ask
our
about that.
previous co-host, was always extolling its virtues.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I
It is
absolutely loved Clone Wars.
It's an animated show, right?
Yeah,
Mm.
yeah. So there was the two. There was there was one that went for, I think it was by some, maybe not Russian, but European director.
Yeah, I think he was Russian. I think you're right.
Yeah, so he did one that was more 2D hand drawn and stuff.
That was
And
cool
that
as
was
well.
deep lore. That went really
Right.
deep.
People don't talk about that show enough. That was great.
No, they really don't. It kind of like, I think it freaked people out a bit too much because it was so deep they weren't ready for it.
Right.
And the 3D animated one that is now the kind of big one that's gone into Rebels, which is also an animated one. That, especially in the first 3 seasons, starts quite kid friendly. But then as the season progresses, you get a couple of like darker episodes thrown in, a bit more adult. And then it gets like season 4, 5, and it's just like, oh, well, kids aren't watching this. It's actually,
Right.
it's the fan base that we've had for 30 years that are watching this. Let's
Right.
dive in and,
Okay.
yeah.
Interesting. Because you've, of course, just seen Castlevania as
Yes.
well. And elements of that kind of, I mean, obviously completely different worlds, but like that more adult kind of.
Not as gory.
no, sorry. Imagine it's not gory, yeah.
There's still a bit.
It's not as horny as Castlevania.
No.
Yep. That's true.
Vampires, man. No matter what.
We
Yep.
know this.
Horny vampires.
Horny vampires,
Seriously.
man. God damn it.
There's no point in writing unhorny vampires. It doesn't
No.
work. That's why the Mormon Twilight hardly worked. They were still horny. So, it's just like bad
They
time.
were still very horny.
Yeah, they were repressed
yeah.
though.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Classic Mormons.
Classic.
No, not like that kind of dark kind of style. It's more they started to go towards what the 2D show did, and they started touching on quite deep parts of the existing universe lore, but enough that still a kid could watch it and enjoy it.
Do you recommend starting with Clone Wars? I actually really want to watch it. I want to get better at Star Wars, guys. I want help. I need help. I need to catch up.
Get ready to
It's time
Star
to
Wars.
wake up. Yeah. Time to wake up. I think, should I start with Clone Wars? Or the 2D one that sounds lit? Which
I reckon
lit
watch the
series?
2D one.
2D.
I think if you have to be ready to stomach some very, very, very kid heavy friendly episodes. If you're going to start with season 1, episode 1, like it's a lot of bumbling idiot kind of action, and then as you get into like season 4, 5, so 7, yeah, because they stopped and then they brought back for a 7th, and then like a special like 8th season. So like kind of mid season 3, start of season 4 is where it starts to kind of pander more towards an adult audience. It's a good time. It's a really good time.
Yeah.
If you want to just go into some pretty balls to wall action kind of animated stuff in the 2D one, then dive into that. That's only 2 seasons as well. It's pretty
Okay.
short.
Because we are going to bring that show up when we do an episode this season on Western animation, Castlevania being one of them, Clone Wars, and Avatar: The Last Airbender. Big 3. And are Disney going to do games?
They try. They do it with EA.
Oh,
All
do
those
they?
games, yeah. Which have been mixed.
Problem with their games at the moment was up until this year, they had a exclusive contract with EA Games.
Yep.
And as anyone who plays games knows, for EA, it's not in the game, it's in the bank account.
Yes, microtransactions everywhere, yes.
So they kind of, Battlefront 1 was beautiful to look at, but horrible to play. Battlefront 2 took me a while to get into it, but once I actually got into it, I played that game till the disc died.
Right.
Loved it. And now they've got Fallen Order Jedi, which is it's a single player story. And they've got some stuff coming out towards the end of the year. Actually, they're doing at the moment, it's 12 weeks, like instead of 12 days of Christmas, they're doing like 12 weeks up until Christmas of Days of the Bounty, like a Star Wars promotion. And like, so they've started with they released a whole bunch of new toys and they're doing all like new Lego sets and stuff, but it's in 2 weeks they have like a teaser image for what's coming out that kind of week. And it's just a gamepad. So if they're not releasing a whole bunch of new games, then I will riot.
There will be riots.
Yes.
Yeah, so I guess I'll just bring it back to Star Wars Visions. So again, just quickly for anyone who doesn't know, the 7 studios, Kamikaze Douga, Studio Colorido, Studio Trigger, Kinema Citrus, Production IG, Science Saru, who did Ping Pong the Animation, Space Dandy, Devilman Crybaby, Hands Off Isaacen, and what we spoke about in our last show, which you did, Heike Monogatari. So they're a very, very prominent studio as well. And then Trigger and a place called Geno Studio, who I don't know about, very new, again, another subsidiary of Twin Engine. And they have done Golden Kamui and Pet. So, yeah. And then Science Saru doubled up, so did Trigger. So, yeah.
These are all big studios too.
Big studios.
And, yeah, I feel like it's funny because I don't know, what I do know about Star Wars, well, I've seen all the films, including the new ones. Mm-hmm. But what I do know is I feel like it's funny that I'm not a bigger fan of it because there's so many narrative things that are just shared with every anime trope as well.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, there's a big power system, the Force, which I now know about.
Explain to us what the Force is,
Let me
Shelley.
explain the Force. Sorry, it's just a throwback to how I didn't realize that there was a dark side of the Force, which is like the whole storyline of Star Wars. So lost many points that day. Might make a recovery. But I think it's funny I'm not a big fan because I'm just like, I think about, Luke Skywalker's story and I think about all the different tropes and everything. I'm like, this could be any of the big 3. This could be Naruto, this could be Bleach, it could be everything. This is like from the 70s. It's like OG stuff.
The hero's journey.
Yeah. So I should probably, put more respect on it and shut up and watch it properly because this is probably where a lot of places get their cues for storytelling in terms of hero's journey. So yeah. And it's that bigger world, that bigger culture. And obviously proof's in the pudding, like it's still going strong. People are still as passionate about it as they were in the 70s.
Oh yeah.
And I think
more so.
I mean, the vague thing I do know is that apparently when George Lucas, that's the story, I think we talked about this in the sci-fi episode where when he previewed it, people were begging him not to show it and his wife had to re-edit it, basically. So it's a thing where it kind of came from somewhere a bit murky and then just so happened to create a massive universe. I think it's because it has that vague power system that makes it so open for so much lore that's how everyone does, anime stories like that can go on forever. And that's awesome. It's like simplest form of storytelling allowing for really, really clear stories and offshoots.
I mean, the first story, when you boil it down, it's a fantasy story about a young ward who's picked up by a strange wizard. They meet a rogue. They go storm a castle to fight a dark wizard.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Like it's a super old story. It just happens to be laser swords.
Tale as old as time.
Tale as old as time.
Yeah, I mean, it was something that I really enjoyed. And I hope they do more things like this. I hope other companies as well start throwing.
I believe they're doing a season 2.
Yeah. And I hope more Western, fictional universes start doing things like this, throwing them in animation.
You guys have never seen the Marvel anime stuff, have you?
No, I haven't.
The X-Men and then there's the Wolverine one.
Is it bad?
Yeah.
Because the X-Men
I enjoyed the X-Men
They
one.
were fine.
The X-Men one was good.
The X-Men animated TV show
I think they were
that was Western was my favorite
That was
show.
dope.
Oh, yeah, that was dope.
That was dope.
That's the best theme tune of all time.
That was good.
But for the Marvel stuff, I just think it didn't go far enough with the anime. It was too close to what the actual X-Men were and what Iron Man was. There was not that original spin.
Oh, I don't know. Did you watch that Wolverine solo one?
Maybe I didn't.
There's one that's it's just it came out at the same time as that Iron Man one, but it just focuses on Wolverine. But obviously he's got heaps of ties to Japan. And he was a lot younger, a lot leaner, and a lot taller. He looked like someone who stepped out of like a Yakuza game.
Right.
One of the main characters for that.
I didn't see this.
But then
Sounds really hot, to be honest. Is that fair to say? Like,
he just had the hair. He didn't have the chops and the beard.
Chops.
And he was, it was for me as like I'm an old school Wolverine fan. It was an interesting choice for that. But in layman term of anime, it's the the running when suddenly everything's rushing behind you. It's like kind of like they're running through hyperspace.
Yep.
Going back to Star Wars. But every time he popped his claws and would charge at someone, that would happen.
There's also the Animatrix going way back, which was super dope, which I believe Production IG did.
Yeah. Well, those are great.
We did.
Those are better than the rest of the movies.
They were really, really cool.
Well, I mean, The Matrix just has it's so much borrowed from Ghost in a Shell.
Yeah.
And there's so much that is that is very clearly anime influence. So I think the Animatrix was just like such an obvious kind of, that's why it worked so well, because aesthetically, tonally. Whereas this is exciting because I think you said like the Visions one, they actually took things and made it their own. So like studios had that kind of freedom. It's like they almost had their auteurship of every episode. Like Trigger do something completely insane, and that was like really exciting. They didn't have to fit under the same category of like, this is Star Wars. You're just doing Star Wars, blah, blah, blah. It's like, you can do you, but just make it Star Wars. Like, do you, but add a lightsaber. And then,
Well, that's interesting.
Make it sexy. Oh, too far.
They only focused on Jedi.
They did too.
Every episode was focused around a Jedi or a character who wanted to be a Jedi.
This is true.
And there is so much more to the Star Wars universe. Like
there is? Sorry.
You'll get there.
Yeah, baby steps.
Watch The Mandalorian.
This goes back to when Disney canned LucasArts. We lost the Star Wars 1313 game, which was one of the
That looked
games.
awesome.
It was all about Boba Fett and his like coming of age story in the underworld of Coruscant. And like it was, I still cry about the fact that game never got made.
And it looked good as well.
It looked really good.
Teasers looked good.
But there's so much more to that universe that they haven't touched. They've literally just gone, and I guess that's kind of a good way to introduce a lot of the Star Wars fans to anime as well, is be like, focus on essential thing. Just focus on Jedi for now. We'll get into the other side, the bounty hunters, the rogues, all that kind of stuff later. Yeah.
Interesting, because I must admit, having watched it, I was like, this is a cool universe. Obviously, it's a cool it's Star Wars, right? Obviously. But I was like, okay, cool. So I guess it's doing, and while we're getting you on from Pixels and Pints again, cross-promotion.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really cool thing. And I think, obviously they're trying to be Marvel. Probably sounds like it didn't work, but...
Oh, this was a long time ago, though.
Right.
Before they had the clout to...
Right, okay, before the MCU kind of blew up. Also owned by Disney, so maybe they will do it.
They probably will.
Like this, yeah.
I mean, I always think it's like amazing that Disney actually did it, because they're quite tight with their properties and can creative control, and then just to give a large chunk of your world over to someone else and go, do what you want.
Yeah, I think it was really cool. I think the project was really, really cool. And I even had a lot of friends like messaging me, because obviously I'm, anime guy.
A nerd.
They're all like, oh, dude, I'm watching this new Star Wars thing. It's really anime. It's really cool. And I was like, great. Fucking great.
Yeah.
Like, this is awesome.
Yeah.
Go Disney. Go anime.
So Tom, on your podcast, you guys talk a lot about gaming, obviously, and I know that you're a massive gaming fan. Do you play a lot of JRPGs and stuff like that in general? Have you ever into that world?
Final Fantasy is probably the big one for me.
Yeah.
That's the only one I really got into. I've never done, say, like Persona or...
Got to do that one day.
I know, you keep telling me.
And then you got to date 5 girls and then like fail school and then like have a great time. Like you got to really lean into that.
Yeah.
It's funny because Sam and I have been talking about doing a JRPG episode because we genuinely are like the crossovers between that world and how like the designs for the games actually started through mangakas designing for, what was that game called?
Chrono Trigger was one of them.
Yeah, but there was also like way back
Dragon
when,
Quest.
Dragon Quest. Yeah, it's just interesting because I think that like the crossover between that is a lot. So it's funny, you haven't watched a lot of anime, but I'm sure since you played a lot of Final Fantasy, that kind of thing, those sort of anime kind of qualities are totally in there. So
yeah, definitely. Yes, I started my first Final Fantasy game was 10.
Nice.
That's where I first got into it. And then 12's one of my Final Fantasy 12 is one of my favorite games of all time.
12 is a great game.
Yeah. It's underrated
It's one of the last ones I played, actually, because I started with 6 and then went through to 12 and then I got...
Is 12 still turn-based at that point?
It's more of an action...
It was where the turn-based was slowly going to what they did in like 13, where I lost... Yeah.
Yes, agreed.
I need turn-based because I'm so uncoordinated and I can't. I stress out.
That's why 10 was perfect. I love 10.
10 was fucking great.
Remember
Blitzball was
great.
fucking
we bought the PlayStation. I remember this vividly. And I remember when the character started speaking, and it was like the best moment of my life. I was like, and now looking back, the voice acting in Final Fantasy X is like famously terrible. Like that
shocking.
weird laugh.
Yeah.
But when I was a kid, I was like, wow, like this is it. This is the future.
Nothing will top this.
Honestly, I was like, it was truly a moment. So look how far we've come.
The lightning jumping mini game in that game, I'll never forget.
God.
Hours lost.
Oh,
hours lost.
So many hours lost in...
I don't think I ever played anything after 10.
Really? Yeah, 12 was my
I feel like that's
I
where it
skipped
peaks for
11
me, for
because 11 was
JRPGs.
online only.
Yeah, 11 was online only.
I played one on PS4. I can't remember what number it
You
was.
were playing
but
15, I remember.
yeah,
it was
you play.
Christmas.
It's a Bucks Party one. Where you
What?
play.
Yeah, no, I played 15. Yeah.
You play,
Oh, right.
it's like you're
And I
driving
played the
in a
seven
convertible.
around in
You
the
drive
black
out in a
car.
convertible and you
Yeah,
go
right.
fishing with your boys, and you're there to go meet your.
Lads.
Yeah, like seriously, it's like the most bizarre game. I was like, they were just like a J-pop band, and I loved it.
They really were, yeah.
All in leather, driving through the
yeah.
desert in their black
Like
car.
I was into it.
yeah,
good.
of
Yes.
course.
But I also
You played the remake.
I played the okay.
7. Final Fantasy 7 remake.
I played the trial for the remake.
Okay.
And it looked beautiful. And I cried in the opening when they had the like Midgar station and the music playing, and then you jump out of the trainer's cloud and you knock out the guard. And I was like, this is my life. Like, I love this. Oh my God. But then what happened was I realized it wasn't turn-based and I died in the trial,
Instantly.
in the like, you know, the demo,
Yeah.
sorry. And I had to beg my partner to play it for me so I could watch it because he's better at video games. And he was just like, I feel very used right now. And I'm like, I am using you, just play. And then
Play, boy, play.
and then I ended up just deciding to watch. He was just like, just watch someone play it, like a let's play on
Twitch.
YouTube.
Yeah.
So I did that. But I want to play it eventually when
Was
I
he
get.
crying in the corner when he said it?
That's just like, yeah.
Watch someone else. In the shower, rocking back and forth.
Honestly, it looked amazing, but I missed the turn base because I'm bad at gaming. That's it. I love video games. I'm a terrible gamer. It is the curse I carry. But luckily, Twitch, designed for people like me.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
Heard it here first. Yeah.
And Tom, you enjoyed the remake of Final Fantasy 7?
Yeah, I'm very excited. I have to do, they brought out the little episode which features Yuffie.
Yep.
I haven't got around to that yet. My backlog is extensive.
I can imagine it would be, yes.
Yeah, so no, it's sitting there ready to go. So I've got to just find time to get into it.
For sure. Well, mate, thank you so much for coming on.
No, thank you for having me.
That was
This is
absolutely
great, guys.
fantastic. Really, really cool, man. And just quickly before you go, so might I suggest, from the sound of what animes you're watching, I would strongly suggest throwing Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood into
you would.
your
Oh, God.
mix because I think you'll enjoy it. It's a perfect gateway.
Cool.
And from the sound of things, you'd have a good time. And again, not dissimilar to some Star Wars lore, you know, with a loose power system, alchemy.
It's not a loose power system. You guys just don't know the power system. It's a very concise
It
power
sounds
system.
pretty vague.
Alchemy is pretty. They got a hard
Alchemy is
rule,
hard
but
rule.
they stretch it. Some things are like, okay, what did you sacrifice for that? It doesn't matter.
Yeah, the force is
I'd probably
absolute.
suggest Samurai Champloo.
Samurai Champloo as well,
But
absolutely.
Anyway,
Definitely.
once you get a chance after your backlog of games, and you know,
Well, no, I'm going to finish Cowboy Bebop first.
Fuck yes.
completely fair. That is the gateway I would recommend.
Yeah, it's a ripper, absolute ripper. Now, the trailer did just come out at the time of recording this podcast for the live action. There are alarm bells. There are some alarm bells ringing.
A friend of mine
and
has seen it because he works for Netflix.
bitch, we're all worried.
I am choosing to choose. Sorry,
Choose violence.
Choose.
Woke up and chose violence.
I was going to choose peace today. I woke up and I was like, you know what I want? I want a good live action adaptation of some anime.
We all want
and
that.
I go, you know what? I think this is it. I'm choosing to be disappointed. So I think it's going to be great.
Okay.
So I think
glad
that
you- I'm glad
to
you're
me,
saying
all
it
of the
about this.
trailers and everything that went behind it, I went, unlike the Death Note Netflix, which is, I can't even begin.
Don't
I
bring
feel
that up.
upset thinking about it. It's been made with a lot of love behind it. Like it looks fan made
That's true.
in almost a good way. Like I'm saying that and people were like criticizing it and saying it looks like bad cosplay, like fan made. And I was like, it looks fan made because it looks like they love the source material.
That's true.
So that could be good. So fingers crossed. Watch this space. I'll be probably yelling in the next podcast. We're going to do one about live action adaptations.
We are.
We're going to get really upset. So stay tuned for
It's
that.
going to be me raging.
It's going to be a lot. We're going to bring a guest on for that, and he's going to be terrified. But we'll see. Like, but,
really picked a sore point for me.
Yeah.
The content of the podcast.
Anyway.
But just quickly, Tom, before you go, just as the Pixels and Pints guy, what is your top beer at the moment and what is your top game?
Oh, well,
Jesus.
Why not?
Sorry.
should have known that one beforehand.
On the spot. Go.
Top game at the moment. Well, I mean, I'm thoroughly enjoying Guardians of the Galaxy, which I
yes.
thought I would hate, given I ended up really hating the Avengers game. But it's,
That game sucked.
yeah, but Square Enix and they dropped Crystal Dynamics. So
Yeah.
I think that's the big thing. Top beer at the moment is there's so many. I had a really delicious Mountain Culture the other day at the Union. It was one of the first beers I had off tap. So I guess that after coming out of the no pubs for 3 months, that was nice. A little neeper, but hit the spot.
There's pretty much nothing Mountain Culture does that's bad.
It's true.
I'm just going to say that
It's true.
right now. A brewery up in the Blue Mountains of New South Wales, or just out of Sydney. And if you don't know them, drink them.
Yeah.
They're not paying us. They can
At
if
all.
they want.
We all literally work for different beer companies.
Yeah, literally four of us.
Like,
four of us
people are like,
four of us
seriously.
all work at Grab.
Yeah.
It's true, yeah.
Sorry, our respective
Gateway
companies.
to anime and pints.
We can rip it off. Pots and bites.
Anyway, so I hope you all learned a little bit about Star Wars Visions. If you do have Disney Plus, definitely get onto it because it's really cool. Like, again, some misses, a lot of hits. And I think hopefully there is a season 2 coming. We've got that confirmed. And I think it's just a really cool thing that's being tried.
Yeah.
And, start trying stuff.
More
Why
big
not?
swings. Why not?
Yeah, have a crack. So awesome. Tom, thank you so much.
Thank you,
really
guys.
appreciate having you on, man.
No, I
It was
really
a lot of
appreciate
fun.
coming here.
Thanks
Thank
for
you.
sharing your knowledge. And we'll see you all next time.
Yeah.
Catch you later.
May
See
the
ya.
fourth be with you.
We're this close.
Yeah, wow.
May the 4th be with you.